forward. That wisdom carries forward into your spiritual self. They'll teach you how to do it. Then your next lifetime, it sticks. So you've, in effect, kind of taken a shortcut in the evolutionary cycles and skipped a few lifetimes down the road. So there are potential shortcuts. It is quite possible to do that. I think what I'll do here, I've got some movie film too of the crafts flying around, and then I want to do a little drawing and go over some of the mind and spirit things we've learned from them about how levels of consciousness and thinking and so forth. I didn't get to do any of these things the last time I was here, so I thought that might be kind of entertaining tonight. But before we get to that part, any questions you'd like to ask about ships, Pleiadians, landings, anything else? Anybody got a question about anything you want? I'm open to ideas. Hi.
Hi. What kind of contact have you heard is still happening, say, in the last year and a half or so? And are you still in contact very much with them?
Well, I was around like 86 or 90. All these pictures were taken 75 through 78. The last photo session you saw, that last ship was in 81. After that, he has had a few sporadic contacts, but not much of anything. In 80, when I was over there, Billy told me they weren't coming by anymore. He was not having any more contacts. He would have what he called social calls, where every now and then he would feel them in his head, or they'd talk to him in his head. Or you might see the disc over the house for a few seconds. They would just kind of check in on him. But the organized, ongoing contacts for his education and our benefit were all over. They weren't going to do that any longer. They'd stopped doing that part. While I was there, I did get to see ships a couple of times. In the last 2 or 3 years, the people that live there at the house with Billy say that he's had a couple of more contacts, and they've been written down in notes. I've read them. Frankly, I don't believe them. I don't think they're written by Billy, for one thing. I think people around the house who have more of a vested interest financially are trying to proliferate the contacts. Billy, no one's met Billy. You wouldn't know if he wrote it or he had not. No one would know unless you understood him and his personality and what he's really like. A sad situation has kind of fallen in over in Switzerland. We have a group of 24 people who own the rights to Billy now. They have since 1984. It's an organization called the FIGU. I was a member for 3 years. The FIGU is in charge of all of the information. Billy doesn't read the mail or do anything anymore. He's just not that healthy. They have got into a situation where they have discovered they can make money by selling the information. And now it's $10,000 for a franchise fee if you want to start a FIGU study group, and $680 a year for members to pay dues to mail over to Switzerland. And when they found out they could get into that, and money started coming in, things have shifted. So we have a situation where the human element has come into play, and we don't have this warm, cozy little spiritual environment over in Switzerland any longer that used to be there 10, 15 years ago. So it's become kind of a machine now. It almost seriously borders, I hate to use the word cult, but they've gotten so closed-minded about things that it's going that direction. They're no longer open to other people's interpretations. They're mad at everybody, and it isn't a real healthy situation any longer. I kind of gave up communicating a couple of years ago. All I was doing was getting into arguments with people. Either they're mad that I don't come over anymore, or they're mad I wrote a book, or they're mad I'm doing this or that. And it's not why I went there to begin with. I was just a traveler on the road, stopping for my own personal experience and education, much like you go to the pyramids or the Great Wall. You go to benefit yourself and to learn and keep moving on. And they were mad at me for stopping in and moving on. I resigned from the group in 1990. I wasn't mad at anybody. I just didn't want to be part of this group attitude any longer. I started getting nasty phone calls just because I would talk to other people or they didn't want me doing this or that. I said, this is getting really out of hand. I said, I'm not a follower type, quite plainly. I'm a road traveler. I'm a troubadour, if nothing else, or a vagabond. So you got the wrong guy to try to control and put the screws on. So then they sent me like a 5-page contract to sign that I wouldn't talk to anybody and only do what they told me and blah, blah, blah. And I just kind of chuckled and laughed. That's this last-ditch effort of a desperate group. So I made a nice videotape, sit down in the living room, thanked him very much for the experience, but resigned from the group, and thanked Billy for the experience, and I haven't been back over there since. So I'm just still going down another road, still looking for things. Anything else you want to chat about? I did at Billy's, and they were in such an unusual way that it sounds pretty strange. I can't do it on my own. When I was young, my mom was part of what was called the National ESP Board in the 60s. We had a guy named Harold Sherman, Little Rock, Arkansas, was teaching the government what ESP was. My mom was one of those 5 people they brought in that was clairvoyant. And underneath it all was the government trying to see if we had these unique people who could see what the Russians were doing or whatever, you know. My mom could see what was going to happen tomorrow. She couldn't see beyond that, like short-range, clairvoyant type. And because she could do things and was very into it, at an early age my mom taught me all about the crystals and floating things and where the different areas of your mind are. So I knew a few things when I got there. And Billy recognized that right away. And when he did, he says, "How much do you know?" And he sat down, we began to talk, and I found out he knew a lot more than I did. But I understood the basics of it. So he says, "Try doing this." And he would give me some mental gymnastics to do with symbols to see how strong I was. And then I would get in the pyramid to try it to see if I could cause things to happen and so forth. Well, I got to a point after a little while that he would say, "Well, I'll meet you tonight. You go to bed, and I'll give you the symbol to use, and I'll meet you, and we'll go aboard the craft." I says, "Okay." So I would go do my breathing things I was supposed to do, and I would invoke the symbols and lay down, do my thing, and get into my blank mode. Then I would hear his little bitty voice, "Hello, Randy." And the first couple of times it happened, I jumped up. I thought he was at the door. It kind of spooked me. But he wasn't at the door. He was up there waiting for me. Billy gets out of his body as easily as you and I walk out the front door. He gets out of his body, and then he came to get me. And after I didn't do it right the first few times, and I got onto it, then next thing I know, I'm on board a craft, but it's like you're a fly on the wall. No one talks to you, addresses you, and I would watch Billy communicate with them, but no one ever would look my direction. I never felt anything. I was strictly there as an observer. And I don't know how he actually did it, but I can't do it on my own. I never got to go out on a craft on by myself physically or anything, but I had months of experiences like that. And mostly I was told the reason that they would do that, without having gone through the early childhood of opening up the spiritual language in my mind, they said that most of the people on the planet who are of that old Lyrian genetic are older than most of the other people. And if they are, buried inside them already in their spiritual side are the old memories of the Lyrian lifetimes. And as Lyrians, they've already lived on worlds that are far more advanced than the one we're on right now, so it'll come to them easier. So they said all I really needed to do was be exposed to the ideas, and the whole chapter would come back to me. So that's kind of what happened. And with me, Billy would just give me a few things and kind of grin and says, "You got it?" And I'd say, "Yeah." He says, "Go outside and figure it out." I'd go sit down and think about what he talked about, and I could walk back in and explain it to him for 3 hours. Stuff just started coming back very fast. So he says, "We don't need to teach you as much as we just need to wake you up. And once you're awoken, then you can go do whatever you want to with it." So that's the kind of context I had. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, when you talk about Lyrian entity or other cultures or whatever,
Yeah.
aliens, if reincarnation is a fact, I mean, you can't tell the Lyrian, I mean, what do you call Lyrian?
Lyrian.
By walking down the street, because
No.
the bodies are not going to be all in one.
Right, we're all mixed up. No license plates, anything there. No, we can't really. For the most part, the ancient Lyrians, when they first came here, stood out quite a bit. They were 7 to 9 meters tall. They came from different worlds with different atmospheric pressure, so they'd be easily spotted. He says, "This is what